and Onda Group is actually moving with it in Italy to grab customers from incumbents who are not moving quite fast into these technologies. And actually, this is helping them to increase the number of customers, service them better, and also they're planning to use our elderly monitoring application soon. So Regal Grid is the company which is providing energy communities, building microgrids, and our sensors is an essential part and real-time tool to actually send energy data to their software system. And this is a typical IoT, perfect IoT project for smart communities. So this is our rollout partners, utility in the UK. We're working with Engie in France, and this is exactly where a small change in the policy could change the whole system, because the data is not as good as in the UK, but link emitters are everywhere now. It's just small change in the firmware could bring up all these use cases to high quality, or not much so. On the sensors, you can see we work in Italy, work in the UK, Capital Energy is a Spanish company, GIG is Tunisia, sorry, and NL in Italy as well. And on the smart home, we work with Regal Grid, with NLX, which is accelerator of NL in Italy for microgrid communities, but also BP. So BP is our shareholder, BP Ventures, and actually they've given us not only the money, but a lot of connections, a lot of thought power, and they have changed their strategy, as you know, a few years ago, and now they're full member of energy communities. They run Strala, their smart home trading platform, which is bringing value to the consumers, but also they're introducing disaggregation and our projects into UK, Germany, Spain, and US. And our next markets, apart from Europe, is going to be US market, because we believe this is where we can make the most impact. The smart meters are already being rolled out. Their competition has started among utilities, so they need that to keep their customers, but they're bringing the footprint, carbon footprint, drastically down with the existing fuel mix. So just the history of investments. So we raised $2.5 million from BP Ventures and First Imagine Ventures, our two main funds. They've provided further CLNs. Until now, we're enjoying it. And we're raising about £5 million now to scale into those countries. And obviously, depending on the amount of money we can attract, so we can scale quickly to America, but not necessarily we need money for that. For that, we need more of support on the policy, on smart meter data transmission, and these kind of protocols, where we can really bring value on top of this data. So we should be turning more than £2 million this year, and is multiple of 2 or 3 every year thereafter. So we believe that we are a very attractive company. It's SaaS business model, recurrent revenues, software mainly, and very, very scalable to the whole world. And this is bringing a huge impact on climate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sergey. Very interesting and certainly exciting project. We would like to welcome the questions from the audience. Please feel free to ask. Perhaps I may start. I was going to ask, in terms of the competition, the product looks very neat and clearly user-friendly. How will you ensure that you'll stay at the forefront and remain the software of choice for both for the utilities as well as for the customers?
Thank you. So obviously we're not the first and not the last company in the world to do that. There have been different attempts to do this. This is very specific part of research and science. We are one of the oldest companies to do this technology. We're about 6.5 years old. So we had to do a couple of relaunches to reach to the level where we are now. And we understood that, you know, only having our own hardware is not enough. So we had to came up with a product which is smart meter based, very scalable. So we had to also work on different countries, have different data. So all this research and all this data science team, which is half of the company, basically brings us value and long-term advantage. Creating library of appliances signatures is not easy, and every country has its own infrastructure, has its own electrical parameters and own consumer habits. So we have the core knowledge, and which is a sustainable advantage. Plus we have global patents over our hardware, so the trade secret over our algorithms. So this is protecting us from the competition, but also the market of utilities is so huge and the number of customers is so massive, and the demand is now, 2 years ago, this product was nice to have. At this moment, there's no question that customers requiring this kind of details, it's a must-have product. It's just a question of which provider you want to use. And there are only companies on one hand I can count who can do similar to that, but we have our own USPs in front of them.
Thank you. We have one more quick question.
Hi, thank you, Sergey. Can you explain a little bit about the revenue model? It wasn't clear for me. And if it's really, from what I understood, is B2B, B2C. If you can just give me more color on how you're generating revenues. Thank you.
Sure. So there are two streams of revenues. In the markets where we don't have smart meters available, for example, Italy or Germany, we sell hardware near to cost, but we do earn some margin on top of that. But the main value and the main revenue is generated through SaaS model. So we charge subscription per customer per year from utility. It ranges from country to country, but something between 5 and 20 euros or pounds a year, which is a fraction of any bill. But actually, that's the main revenue model. In the countries where we have smart meters, it's just a software charges. And obviously, the running cost is just our team and the cloud platform we are using, from Amazon at the moment. But that's the business model. So it's quite a good margin on the software, and because we are not rolling out massively hardware, we understood that most scalable is a software approach, and smart meters are becoming more and more available in different countries. So that's where the focus is.
Thank you very much, Sergey. Next up, we have Vikrant Pratap from Qualus.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vikrant Pratap. I am the CEO of Qualus. First of all, thank you to Innovator Capital and the Principality of Monaco for organizing this event. It's an honor to be invited to take part. And also thank you to all of you who have stuck around for the afternoon in between lunch and coffee and are pushing through. So thanks for sticking around for another 15 minutes or so. So what is Qualus? Qualus provides a patented system to make the leather production process significantly more sustainable and lower cost. And why leather? Leather is ubiquitous. It's a material that is used in a vast array of products. Leather is used in footwear, in automotive applications, in the luxury goods industry. Approximately 20 billion square feet of leather is used or produced on an annual basis. Unfortunately, it's also an industry that has a very large impact on the environment. So an estimated 500 billion liters of water are required for leather production every year. And of course, the chemicals that are used in the leather production process are toxic and can be harmful to the environment if not treated properly for the transmission. So that creates a lot of pressure on brands to reduce their environmental footprint, and they pass that pressure on to the leather manufacturers. But leather manufacturers have a significant problem because the conventional means of reducing their environmental footprint either cost more, which isn't acceptable if you're in an industry that already has very low margins to begin with, or they diminish the quality of the product. So everybody wants sustainability, but nobody wants to pay for it, and certainly we don't want to compromise on the wonderful products that we use in our everyday lives. And that's the problem that we as a business address. So first, on the sustainability front, we address or we contribute to 4 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our system uses significantly less water for production, approximately 30 to 40% less in key stages. Our system also uses significantly less chemicals for production, 10 to 15% in key stages. And that's not only less chemicals going into the process, that's also less chemicals coming out in the waste stream. The key element of our product is reusable and recyclable. And from a life cycle analysis perspective, our system lowers the carbon footprint of leather production of tanneries. So the sustainability benefits are clear, but just as importantly, we do so in a way that is economically viable. So every single tannery that uses our system will have a lower cost of production, will be more profitable with our system than their conventional means of production, and the product is just as good, and in many cases, better. And that's what we call sustainability without compromise. Environmental benefits shouldn't have to come at the expense of either profits or quality. So how does it work? Leather production, in the simplest terms, is done in large drums. You throw in water, you throw in chemicals, you throw in the animal hides, turn the drums for long periods of time, and the chemicals are entered into the hides to create leather. And our system, very simply, replaces key element of that process. So the water, 30 to 40% water in key stages is replaced by small polymer spheres that are reusable and recyclable. And in doing so, we obviously are reducing the water required for the production process, but also we're able to deliver the chemicals more effectively because as a solid medium, the spheres are able to drive the chemistry into the leathers much more effectively than just water washing back and forth. So less water required for production, but also less chemicals required because the chemistry is delivered more effectively and ends up in the hide itself and not in the waste stream. We have strong commercial traction. We have 2 customers that we've signed already. Number 1 is a tannery in Mexico, which is a leading footwear leather manufacturer globally, supplying brands such as Timberland and Wolverine. We went live with our system with them in Q4 2019, and they're now generating recurring revenues for us. It's a 10-year contract we've signed with them that over the life of the contract will generate about 1.5 million in turnover for us. And a similar contract has been signed with a reference customer in Brazil, which is scheduled to come online with production with our system in Q3 of this year, so in the next couple of months. In addition to that, we have conducted demonstrations, successful demonstrations, with over 20 other tanneries in Europe and Latin America, and they have consistently said that the quality of leather produced with our system is just as good with their conventional process while achieving the sustainability benefits. And my favorite quote from one of those customers is that the Qualus leather is too good for Gucci, meaning that the quality of the leather is enhanced by the use of our product. But the best endorsement is not what I tell you in terms of what they've said. The best endorsement is what our customers are saying. And here's a video that one of our customers developed on its own volition and is sharing on its social media platform on LinkedIn and Facebook to promote itself as the leader in sustainability in Mexico. This is from Lafarque in Mexico, our first reference customer. It's a 2-minute video, so let's just go through it. I don't think the sound is on there, but everything you see in this system has effectively been produced by Qualus for the use at the tannery. So here are the spheres that are being loaded for entry into the production drum. The operator is taking those spheres from a container and then lifting it up for entry into the drum. Once they're released inside the drum, then the spheres will turn inside the drum. Here's the inside of the drum with leather in an earlier stage of production, wet blue, which is then processed into leather, and the spheres helping to drive the chemistry into the skins or into the hides. At the end of the process, the contents of the drum are emptied. You can see that piece of leather is no longer blue, but it's been dyed black. And then the spheres are transferred for a cleaning station, a piece of equipment that we developed for the tannery. They're cleaned, and then they're put back into storage for reuse for hundreds of cycles. And the most important thing that I would like to emphasize here is the technology that we have implemented for this tannery is enabling that tannery, which was already a leader in its space, to position itself as the most sustainable tannery in Mexico. And that's something that they're shouting about, not only to the industry, but also to brands who are sourcing from them. It's a shame the sound is not on, because you would have heard their rock star production of this video. It probably wouldn't have been my choice for the soundtrack, but it kind of works. The leather industry is large and stable, so roughly about 20 billion square feet of leather is produced every year, resulting in turnover of roughly 50 billion pounds. And major production centers are dispersed throughout Asia, Europe, and Latin America. Most of the leather that's produced still goes into the footwear industry, but the automotive and upholstery segments are gaining market share. Our system is patented. There are 4 stages of leather production, and our system applies in the 2 middle stages: tanning, retanning, and dyeing. Those patents were developed when we were part of our former parent company. Many of those patents have already been granted in key markets in Europe, in China, in India, and in the US. And we have the exclusive worldwide license to use those patents and to commercialize those patents for the full term of the patents from our former parent company. There are others in this industry who are trying to make the industry more sustainable. There's no one else who can offer the same technology because of the patents. But nevertheless, there are chemical companies, there are equipment manufacturers and waste recovery companies that are aiming to drive sustainability in the leather production industry, but they all have either economic or technical challenges to adoption, meaning they either increase production costs or they diminish the quality of the leather. So we believe that their traction is going to be challenged in the next few years, but nevertheless, even if they are successful, our system would be complementary to their offering anyway. We have an established team, myself and Tejinder Sandhu, who's in the room today. We both have experience working with multiple startups, taking them from early concept development through to commercialization. Chris Jacklin, who leads our business development activities out of Asia, he spent most of his career, over 35 years, in sales roles in the leather industry. And Joanne Tracy, who leads our engineering team, and David Kuttner, our operations team. They have extensive experience, 20 plus years of experience in building engineering solutions for large-scale industrial environments. We also have a very strong and experienced advisory team. Dietrich Techmeyer is one of the most well-respected experts in the leather chemical industry, and he's been a strong proponent of our technology for the last few years. Karen Mignone, who until recently was a chair of the American Bar Association section of Environment, Energy, and Resources, is helping to shape our regulatory strategy, so there's greater regulatory push for the adoption of our technology in the leather industry. And Richard Daniels, who is an academic but also was a technical editor at a leading leather publication, provides us the technical guidance for our product development. In terms of our business model, that's simple. We provide a low-cost product and we're able to establish exclusivity due to the patents that we have, and we're able to price it based on value generated. And that enables us to have gross profit margin of over 70%. As I said, we're generating early revenues so far, but we have ambitious growth plans targeting over 35 million in turnover in 2025. We expect 3 customers this year, but the customer acquisition is expected to increase rapidly in 2022, 2023, and beyond. And I think a fair question to ask is, how would we go from 3 to 18 to 24 per year? And the answer to that is we have a multi-channel strategy to drive our sales. The first is we already have a very strong pipeline for direct sales because of the demonstrations we've done with the 20 or so tanneries I mentioned earlier in our presentation. And because those tanneries are of very different size, tanneries can be small, they can be large, they have different volumes of production. The tanneries that we've done demonstrations with are ones that are significantly larger than average. So they actually represent over 75 standard contracts for us, which means in terms of achieving our targets for 2022, 2023, we only need to convert half of those that are already in the pipeline and have successfully demonstrated our system. We also have a go-to-market strategy that leverages others in the industry. Number one, equipment suppliers such as I'm Innovating, Olsina, Ital Progetti, to name a few, who are supplying equipment and infrastructure to the leather producers or they would be a perfect fit for collaboration. And early discussions with those companies have already started to do joint business development and joint delivery of our system. And in addition, of course, what we would like to do medium to long term is create pull for our system from downstream, from the brands who are buying leather for their products, so that they are forcing the adoption of our technology from the leather manufacturers. We've already had not only discussions, but successful demonstrations with a global footwear brand and a global luxury goods brand to demonstrate the use of our system. And somewhere out there, there are luxury goods products that are going through our system. Apologies, for some reason this continues to go forward on its own, so bear with me a second while I rewind. So those demonstrations already have been conducted, and at the moment there are somewhere out there some luxury products, handbags and shoes from these brands that use leather that's been produced with our system with less water and less chemicals. In terms of our funding history, we started as a business unit within a larger company based in the UK, and that allowed us to gain significant investment to fund our initial R&D and patent filings, and also to validate our product in the field. We spun out of that parent company in 2019, and through the launch of our system at Lafargue Tannery in Mexico, achieved TRL 9. And then we raised a seed round, what we call a seed round because it's our first round as an independent company. We raised £1 million towards the end of last year, and that will enable us to establish reference customers in 4 key markets. I've already mentioned the traction in Mexico and Brazil. We expect to have similar reference customers in Europe and in Asia by the end of this year, and we are now building the team for scaling up the business. We are aiming for a Series A round with a target close by the end of the year for £5 million, and that's focused on commercialization. So given our funding history, it's unusual for a Series A round in the sense that we expect this to be our last round. We don't expect further rounds that would dilute investors in Series A, and that round will get us to a break-even in 2023, positioning us for an exit in 2025. We have identified 2 potential routes to exit. Number 1, a strategic acquisition from a chemicals player, a leather chemicals player, and the logic for them is straightforward. The acquisition of Qualus would enable them to offset the decrease in sales from chemicals as a result of our technology, and it would allow them to create innovative new chemistries that would give them a competitive advantage because they would be the only ones that could take that type of chemistry to market because of how it works with spheres. And then, of course, there's opportunity for a private equity play, a industry roll-up by companies such as CVC, Navis Capital, and Black Diamond, all of which have made investments in the leather industry over the last few years. And the logic for them also is very straightforward. The leather industry exhibits classic characteristics for a private equity roll-up because of the dynamics of the industry. And our technology, as a bolt-on to a private equity roll-up play, would enable them to create value creation or to exhibit value creation at a much faster pace. In summary, we have a clear and compelling value proposition, sustainability without compromising either on profitability or on quality. We have strong commercial traction with the customers that we've already signed that are generating recurring revenues with long-term contracts and a full pipeline for 2022 and 2023. We have an established management team with experience in building business from concept stage through to commercialization and a very large and stable market to go after. And we're targeting Series A round for the end of this year, which we believe would generate very attractive returns for investors, not only because of the inherent value proposition of the business, but also because we don't expect dilution from subsequent rounds, as this would be the last round for the investment. Thank you.
Once again, if we have any questions, please feel free. Otherwise, I might kick it off. So you mentioned the 2 contracts, the 2 10-year contracts that are now in the works. Could you explain a bit further on the implementation and the pipeline of this?
Sure. So for the first contract, the one in Mexico, that's already fully implemented. So the video that was in the presentation is from that tannery in Mexico. They've adopted our system for their full production now. So that's up and running for their full production. That's not a pilot. The second contract in Brazil, the contract is signed. That implementation, the equipment has been delivered from our end to Brazil. They're waiting on a couple of other pieces to be delivered from other suppliers, but we expect that implementation to be completed in Q3, and they are expected to be ramped up to full-scale production by the end of the year.
Thank you very much. And another quick one before I let you go. You are obviously talking about the Sustainable Development Goals and in general about sustainability, and we know the impact that the leather industry has on this. How do you see kind of the future of this market?
Of the leather market,
yes,
in general? I think that's a great question. Many of you, I'm sure, are aware of trends such as vegan leather. They've been quite heavily publicized over the last few months and the last few years. There are a couple of things to keep in mind about those sorts of trends, right? It's important to separate the PR from the substance. And so vegan leather is a great story, and it makes for great PR. But a recent study that was conducted by the Filk Institute in Germany that compared vegan leather, so 9 or 10 different key vegan leathers to leather, or let's call it traditional leather, found that there were two key differences. Number one, many of the substances, in fact, most of the substances that promote themselves as vegan leather have large quantities of plastics in them. So even bio-based leathers that are mushroom leather or pineapple leather and cactus leather, when you look at what's the composition of the material, quite often they have large levels of plastics in them. Sometimes even 65% of the material is actually plastic. And number two, the technical properties that we need for leather in applications such as the automotive industry for car seats or for handbags or for shoes, in terms of its strength, in terms of its flexibility, in terms of its durability. That Filk study found that these alternative materials, they don't match up in terms of the minimum standards that are required across those different criteria to be viable alternatives for substitution of leather in large quantities. So they have certain applications that they're very appropriate for, but they're not ready yet for that large substitution of leather. As such, we expect that the long-term prospects of the leather industry are very good. There's another reason why the long-term prospects of the leather industry are very good, and that is that the leather industry is a solution to the waste problem from the meat industry, because it's the waste of hides from the meat production industry that is then used to create the leather product. And if there was no leather industry, the meat production industry would have a huge problem in the disposal of this waste material. And if we look at the data for meat consumption, for beef consumption over the next 20 to 30 years, despite some of the publicity around the trend towards veganism, certainly in the Western world, if we look at it on a global level through 2050, meat consumption is not going to decrease. In fact, it's only going to increase. And from that perspective, if we don't have the leather industry, then there's a huge problem on a global level that we will have to deal with that the leather industry is already solving today. Fortunately, the product that comes out of the leather industry is best in class compared to the alternatives that are available.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
We are now going for another coffee break. Please be back here at 5 minutes past 4. Next up, we have John Carroll, CEO of Purify Fuel.
Well, good afternoon. I want to thank Innovator Innovator Capital and the Prince Albert Foundation for selecting us to be here to present. It's been a great couple of days. Saw a lot of great presentations, a lot of good discussions. I'm excited about the possibilities that we have to make a good impact on the climate crisis. Very impressed with everybody I've met. My name is John Carroll. I am the president and CEO of Purify Fuel. In 2015, we started development on our family of nanotechnology-based combustion catalysts, specifically focused on heavy-duty diesel engines, like the marine engine that you see in this picture. The top picture there on the left is hydraulic fracturing, or a more commonly known as a fracking site. This was in Denver, Colorado. They were getting all kinds of complaints about the smoke being too close to the schools. The picture on the right is the same fracking site 30 days after they started to use our product, which is called Nano 2 ESG combustion catalyst. The fuel-borne oxidation catalyst used in Nano 2 was invented at Oxford University and perfected by Solvay, a 12 billion euro chemical company, but primarily for light-duty diesel engines. We signed a 10-year joint development agreement with Solvay to take that technology and apply it to heavy-duty diesel engines, which we performed under the supervision of the Houston Advanced Resource Center at the University of Texas. Sometime this quarter, we will surpass 100 million gallons of diesel fuel treated with our Nano 2 ESG catalyst. We sell Nano 2 through distributions to 5 primary off-road markets, those being rail, marine, mining, power generation, and oil and gas. Further, we go after what we consider the thought leaders under what we call our bell cow strategy. So, for instance, Nabors, the largest land drilling company in the world, is our bell cow for the oil and gas market. We signed a 5-year deal with Nabors back in Q2, and less than 2 weeks later, another European-based drilling company called us and placed a 6-figure order based solely on the results of Nabors. And as you can see, we try to do that with different thought leaders in the different markets. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, wrote in his annual CEO letter, in the past year, the mounting physical toll of fires, droughts, hurricanes, and floodings has made climate change the #1 priority for our investors. But is climate change really the #1 priority for Larry Fink? Or is this just another example of corporate greenwashing? On May 25th, Larry proved us all wrong. BlackRock backed 3 dissident shareholders with sustainability agendas for Exxon board of directors. I was in Houston that day. It was a shock. Earlier that morning, a judge in the Netherlands voted or judged against Shell that they must count Scope 3 emissions, which are the emissions that come from the cars and trucks that use their fuel, as part of their 45% reduction by 2030. And then that night, still on May 25th, Chevron lost a shareholder vote that said they must come up with third-party validated ESG plans. So what is ESG? ESG are the non-financial metrics that banks, customers, and investors use to judge your sustainability. The E stands for environmental. It includes things like global warming. S is either social or societal, but in our case, we use health of local workers and of local communities. And governance tries to judge what are these sustainability actions going to do and how are they going to impact your financial stability long term. I was happy to see this next quote from Jamie Dimon as it points to the underlying issue that we are trying to solve. Heavy-duty diesel engines cannot be replaced overnight. They must be made to be, though, as clean as possible today until we can find the ultimate solution to power these heavy-duty diesel engines. We must develop these solutions to make heavy-duty diesel cleaner, but we can't just walk away from fossil fuel. Diesel fuel is pound for pound the most powerful transportation energy source readily available today. The problem is compounded because ships are designed to last for 30 years. Mining trucks are rebuilt again and again so they can last 25 years. And I was recently on the top of that locomotive, right, running tests, and that locomotive was built 9 years before I was born. As my wife will tell you, I'm not a young man. So while diesel is not going to go away, and with ESG goals clearly in mind, we developed Nano 2. Too far. It improves fuel efficiency by 5 to 14%, depending on fuel quality and engine loads. It reduces CO2 emissions. It also reduces harmful emissions, such as carbon monoxide, particulate matter, and soot, by anywhere between 24 and 50%. And most importantly, Nano 2, the EPA ran more than 30 tests on other engine catalysts, like our fuel-borne catalyst, and they found that they either did one or the other. They either reduced carbon or they reduced NOx. They could not find one that did both. We do both. And that combination of improved fuel efficiency of roughly 8% plus the reduction in nitrous oxide combines to reduce the global warming potential of diesel fuel by as much as 15%. Now, work this time. Down there. Can I get some help moving it along? Here we go. All right, we're going on this anyway. So our catalyst, which is patented both in the US and Europe, and which is pending in China, is comprised of 3 basic elements. The first is a cetane booster. And that cetane booster allows the combustion to start sooner and at lower pressure, which means less heat. It then adds an oxidation catalyst that absorbs oxygen at high temperatures and then redonates the oxygen as it gets cooler and the ignition begins to stop. Finally, we suspend this in a lubrication and detergent base to further reduce heat and keep the engines functioning at peak performance. These 3 elements combine to burn a larger percentage of fuel to create power, thus less unburnt fuel escapes through the exhaust as smoke. Yay. Yes, because this one would have been really hard to do without this chart. So this chart here, the bottom is the crank angle. That middle black line in that chart represents top dead center. The left is pressure. This red line here is the combustion profile of standard diesel fuel. You'll see that injection starts at about 28 degrees before top dead center, and ignition starts at about 4. Combustion happens at roughly 55 to 60 bars of pressure. The green line is the same diesel fuel with our product in it. As you see, because it's mechanically controlled, ignition still starts at 28 degrees before top dead center. But now ignition starts about 10 degrees before top dead center. Ignition occurs at a much lower pressure, meaning less heat. That lower pressure and less heat equates directly to the reduction of NOx. And then as it redonates the oxygen back into the process, what you're getting is more energy being burned to create power, and again, less of it coming out as smoke. This is the chemical equivalent of advancing the timing of a compression combustion engine. So Nano 2's performance against the ESG is as follows. From an environmental standpoint, we reduce the global warming potential of diesel by about 7 to 15%. From a worker safety, we reduce harmful emissions anywhere from 25 to 50. And from a government standpoint, the net savings to our customers is 4 to 8%. This product truly reduces emissions, increases power, and saves our customers money. There's no reason they should be hesitant to go. A great product requires great people. We are led by John Campbell, our chairman. John has 40-plus years at Caterpillar. His last job at Caterpillar, he ran R&D for large engine design. Steve Goose is our CFO. He was a regional CFO at Caterpillar for both Europe and Asia. His last job, he was the executive vice president of the railroad group. Jeff Rochester was the managing director of the Nature Conservatory, and he advises our clients on how to improve their ESG scores. Carlene Walker worked for the United Nations and the IMO and has been helping shipping companies burn cleaner for years. Brian Hughes runs our sales. Nancy Rowe is on our board, and she chairs our audit committee. Rick Richards chairs the compensation committee, and General John Sattler chairs the governance committee. I'll be brief on this. If you have questions, though, we can come back to this during Q&A, if I'm allowed to have Q&A. But these top lists here, these are all the current catalysts off-highway. These results we pulled from EPA studies, not from our own. As you can see, we're the only catalyst that reduces both carbon monoxide and NOx. From an on-highway perspective, there is no currently approved catalyst, although Arch Oil has gotten European approval for use only with the DPF filter. Large diesel engines don't have DPF filters, so they're pretty much constrained to the light-duty diesel. And these other ones here, again, while they do improve fuel efficiency, it's a percentage less, a pretty significant percentage less than our product. Our current product roadmap, the Nano 2 ESG catalyst, as I just said, we will be dosing our 100th million gallon of diesel with it. The Extreme Winter Blend is just a change formula of this to actually behave better when it's really cold up north, with a mine. The Nano 2 biocatalyst, we're currently in talks with a major oil company about testing it in the marine market. We also hope later on to get some highway stuff done so we can actually go on highway with it. Dual fuel blending, we're working right now with neighbors. We're getting a larger percentage of the gas being burnt, which saves them money. At the same time, we keep the engine running cooler, so we're reducing NOx. But most importantly, methane slip is down by almost 50%. So I'd like to call this slide a tale of 3 fourth quarters, right? So there's a good fourth quarter, there's a horrible fourth quarter, and there's a much better fourth quarter, right? So Q4 2019, we had just launched the marine market that month. We had good, strong sales in oil and gas, but that was almost 100% fracking. Q4 2020 came, and in addition to COVID, the price of a barrel of crude oil in West Texas went down to minus $37 a barrel. Pricing for a gallon of diesel in the Permian Basin at one time was less than 80 cents. So we made the decision that we were going to price protect our customers to not lose those customers that we had spent so much time trying to get. So we did that, but what actually happened in 2020 is we actually spent more money writing checks to customers to buy down the cost of their inventory than we actually brought in with new revenues. However, we did manage to get all that taken care of by Q4, and we squeaked out about $375,000. This quarter, Q3, will be our best quarter ever. We're going to do a little over $1.2 million. Q4, we should do about 1.9. But the most important thing is that oil and gas number, while it's still big, it's almost 70% traditional drilling. It is not fracking. We've also added a lot of nice new mining customers and marine customers and rail, again, helping them to achieve their ESG goals. So a quick view of our P&L statement. You're going to see that, oh my God, they're talking about going from 200,000 in Q2 to 1.2 million in Q3. We've already done 700,000 of that, and it's still just a July. We have orders in-house for that. All right, what had happened is orders started to pick up in Q2. Prices started going back up. We could raise our prices back up to where they were at. And once we got over some supply chain hiccups, we got a lot of products shipped already in July, with more coming in July and August. Q4, again, looks like some growth. But again, we'll be exiting Q3 at that same run rate, about 650,000. So it's really not. Our long-term P&L, you're going to look at this and say, okay, they're going from $3.5 million to almost 24. We exit Q4 at a $12 million run rate. The neighbors' opportunity that we have in front of us right now will account for most of that growth between 23 and 22. And then in 2023, we're looking at potentially the ability to break a $50 million revenue year. At one time, we had planned on a 2021 preferred round, but much of our 2021 capital requirements will now be financed from internal cash flow. So we have a preferred series round set for early 2022 that has been phased down to $2 million. Its primary use is to get us into Class 1 railroads and into on-highway, biodiesel market. In 2022, our revenues will exceed 23 million, as I said a minute ago. In 2024, that will be 50. Our preferred round offers fully participating preferred rights, a strong anti-dilution provision, and will trigger the conversion of all seed series rounds into preferred stock. So our use of proceeds, SWRI stands for Southwest Research Institute. It's the testing lab that the EPA prefers you to use. And because we're going for a on-highway exemption, we're going to use the lab that they want us to use. 70% of our costs are all based upon either testing for on-highway diesel, testing for Class 1 rail, or testing for very low sulfur pilot that we have planned with Maersk. Maersk's former chief commercial officer is working with us on this as a distributor. He's based up there in Denmark. It's very, very promising, but it's not baked into any of these financials yet. But the numbers are mind-boggling. The rest of our money that we're trying to get through is to improve our automated dosing systems and to start bottling the product both here and in Singapore. So as a final summary, I was selling at a PC company back in 1997, and I was on some sales calls with Steve Ballmer out of Microsoft, and we were talking about this internet thing. And they were talking about, and you could get anybody in any room, anytime to sit down and talk to you about the internet. Microsoft had a whole strategy. It was called, ActiveX. I've never seen anything like that until I saw ESG. I was on the phone with ConocoPhillips, and they wanted some information. I said I would only give it to them if we had NDA. And they said, well, it's going to take 6 to 7 weeks to get that done. I said, I'm not giving it to you without NDA. So they said, let me try this. And he put ESG in the subject line. We had an NDA the next day. So it's just amazing how it works. It's amazing what people are doing. Our product reduces emissions. It increases power. It saves money. It's not the ultimate solution. And we're not trying to find the ultimate solution. What we're trying to do is to have a 10 to 15% less impact on climate change without having any zero cost out of your pocket to pay for it, and no mechanical alterations of the engine of any kind. And I'll take any questions.
Please, anyone, feel free to pose questions. It's an opportunity to ask. I would be interested to hear, and thank you very much, John. Very interesting. I do agree that fossil fuel is here to stay for longer than we're led to believe. But what do you think, and in terms of mitigation, this certainly will be very important, but what do you think the future of the company will be eventually once?
Well, it'll be somewhat about that roadmap, but this is what I think the near term is. The near term is biodiesel, right? It's the only way from a well to wheels or a well to wake standpoint, you're going to achieve the kind of savings that you need to achieve in the next 8 years, right? This is a study that Solvay helped fund that was SAE peer reviewed. If you look at it here, the blue line is 100% petroleum diesel. The green line is 100% biodiesel. In this case, it was Jethropra. And the gold line, or yellow, depending on your eyesight, is the biodiesel with our product in it. So from a performance standpoint, in terms of horsepower, biodiesel is less strong than is petroleum diesel. But you add our product to it, and it will outperform petroleum diesel. From a fuel consumption, in this case, lower is better, right? Blue is petroleum diesel, green is plant-based biodiesel, and gold is our product in the biodiesel. So we actually improve the fuel consumption performance. And if you look at the hydrocarbon number, and this is what we're talking about, right? If you think about plant-based biodiesel, they get the carbon by inhaling the carbon dioxide out of the air. And then they turn that into their plant-based organisms, which we then use to create fuel. It's God's way of recycling diesel, all right? And if you look at the hydrocarbon emissions on petroleum as being the base, biodiesel has less than half. And if you add our product to it, it's down almost 70%. And then the problem with biodiesel has always been NOx. So biodiesel has about 11% higher NOx than a petroleum diesel. You add our stuff to it, and we're down 35%. So biodiesel, and this is why we're talking with that large oil company about the marine test. This is why we're so excited about on-highway with biodiesel. And this, I believe, short-term is another transition technology that we can help bring to market to buy us some more time, right? So all we want to do is slow the growth of GHG and wait for help. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Next up, we have Zeyad Abul-Ella, Managing Director and CEO of HPS.
Yes. A warm welcome also from my side. My name is Zeyad Abul-Ella, as just said, and I'm CEO and founder of HPS. And I'm very happy to be with you today and have the opportunity to introduce HPS to you and the best energy storage for private homes existing today in the world. So we heard it a lot of times today. Humanity is facing an enormous challenge right now, and this is our challenge. And this is to counteract climate change that is ongoing. And this picture that you see on the screen is a horrible situation of a flood have taken part in Germany last week. And within this flood, which is caused by the climate change, there were areas around this flood that were taken off the grid preventively because of the fear of flooded basements. One of our customers lives in that area. And while houses in the complete string, which were taken off the grid for days, were without electricity, our customer had power in his house during the whole time. And this power that he had, the electricity, was completely carbon-free. So delivering carbon-free electricity to our customers is also a measurement that we can use to work against the climate change. And actually, I will present the product in a minute to you. We want to unleash the power of millions to take part in this struggle that we are in. So first, the company. I founded the company together with Henrik in the year 2014. And we strengthened our team with Yevgeny August last year. He's with us today, and it's great to have him on board. And we have more than 100 people working at HPS, and we are very, very proud of them because they are highly motivated and skilled people, and they're working every day to end the use of fossil fuels for home power supply. We have over 180 years of hydrogen experience in this respectively young company, which we bring on to this field, to this path that we are in. So I would like to take you a little bit back in time, because our path started already over a decade ago. Even before founding HPS, we started our path. And it started with a vision. And this vision today has almost become common sense. And this is extremely inspiring for us to see, because we see that what we have started a long time ago is becoming reality today, and we're witnessing this together. So back in time, over 10 years ago, we stated our vision, and we said that we believe that the house of the future at that time will completely be self-supplied with clean energy only from the sun, that every single house will have a PV and storage system to accomplish this. Today, meaning already over a decade ago, over 65% of the Germans wish to produce their electricity and heat independently. With all the ongoing change, with the impact that we witness today, I think this number is constantly growing and will go over 90%. The precondition to achieve a complete carbon-free energy supply only by the sun of the own roof is a competitive seasonal energy storage. And if you want to bring it down to one point, HBS is simply the first company worldwide having produced this storage system and is now offering it to the market. Our product is called Pikea. Let's take a look at it. Again, in one sentence, it's the first energy storage worldwide which enables 1 and 2 family houses to completely supply themselves all year long only with the clean energy collected on their own roof, 365 days a year, even in winter. And we do achieve that by using green hydrogen as a technology, enabling a storage capacity not in the market today. Per single house, we can store far more than 1,000 kilowatt hours. This storage capacity enables actually the USP of our product, which is to be completely independent based on renewable energies only. And this is completely transparent because the complete energy that is used is produced at site, stored at site, and used at site, and you can witness that every single electron is completely carbon-free. So just imagine if we would install a Pikea at your house, the day we set it into operation, you carry out the energy transition immediately, today, to 100%. This is the task that we have now, and every single customer can do so. It's now just a question of carrying this information out into the market stronger and stronger. So we enable actually all our customers to do a personal contribution to act against climate change by installing a system at their house and taking the carbon footprint away from the energy use that they have at home. You could say there's a lot of technology. We have a one-stop solution, always focusing on the desire of the customer, delivering a complete independency and a complete carbon-free energy supply. Out of one solution, one supplier, one warranty with one service, and we give a 10-year guarantee on our product. We take the technology and put it into a one-stop solution to take away the complexity that our customers are facing normally, because it's very complicated and sometimes overwhelming. Here, you get the USP out of a very compact and simple system, and this eases the decision of our customers for a Pikea and a carbon-free energy supply. A very brief description of how the functionality of our system is. So on this picture, you see a situation in summertime on a day, and we have the PV on the roof of the house, and it produces electricity, and you use it directly. I always say at that point, the best energy storage in the world is the one I do not need, because the energy storage costs money and has efficiency. Unfortunately, the sun is not always shining when we're using the energy, so we need to store it. And we store it in batteries. And if we look into summer nights, you can already supply the house very well out of batteries. Up to here, there are many companies in the market having an offer, like Tesla Powerwall, like LG, Sonnen, SolarWatt, Varta, and so on. I can name 30 companies offering a lithium-ion battery for home power supply. Actually, when we look into summer, the batteries are always full, and we have a lot of excess energy. And now we have an integrated electrolyzer within our system, collecting the excess energy and producing green hydrogen at site and storing it. And while we do that, we also use and utilize the heat that is produced to heat up the hot water storage, meaning for cooking, showering, etc. That's why we reach for a very high efficiency in the system. And now we jump into wintertime, and now there's less or not enough energy coming from the PV, and it's the battery systems out in the market are all discharged and cannot supply the house anymore. And now we use the hydrogen, which is, in other words, the summer sun, collected in the summertime, and we bring it to the integrated fuel cell, all part of our product, and we produce power and heat again in the wintertime. And therefore, we supply the batteries and the house with electricity, and now we use the heat, that is the process heat of this step, to support the heating of the house. And with this seasonal shift, from the electrolyzer over the storage to the fuel cell, we achieve the complete independency and carbon-free supply of the house today. When you look at our solution, it consists of 3 components. One is the PV, which is commodity and available in the market and produces the electrons that we need. And then you have 2 parts of the system, the energy center, which is placed inside the house and has a footprint of 1.5 square meters. And we have the seasonal energy storage, which can be placed outside the house and has a need of 3 square meters. A very, very compact system to achieve the dream of an independent clean power supply. Our storage, our hydrogen storage is scalable, so it can be adapted in its size to the needs of the house. We want to change the world and the way we produce and use our energy at homes. And to have a maximum impact, we have a fundamental principle which we followed building up this company. And this is, we're building a scalable product business, not a project-oriented business. We do not sell engineering hours. Everything within the design of this product, with our approach to the market, is heading for a serious manufacturing and a strong ramp-up of a product business. If you look at Pikea as it's shown right now on the side of this slide, every component is easily accessible from all sides and can be manufactured very fast and can be manufactured in a serious manufacturing. The way you see the components here shown, exploded, they fit through every stairway, through every door, and can be implemented in existing houses as well as new build houses. In the next lifetime phase, they can be implemented into the house easily by existing installation companies because all interfaces between the system and the house are completely standardized. It's very easy to train companies to install a Pikea system. If you take a look at the next lifetime phases, which is operation, we have service. The complete technology, the know-how is pulled into the modules, and they have a very simple interface between the single modules and the overall system. So it's a plug-and-play approach, which again enables our partners also to do the service without studying hydrogen technology before. It's very easy to get them on track. And while getting them on track with the existing networks, it supports the speed of our growth into the market. And I don't want to say it, one of our goals, and we are ambitious, is to build up the first hydrogen company worldwide being profitable. And we're doing so by following our strategy to really scale up this product business, and you can witness this within every detail of the product and our approach. We do not only do hardware, we do software, and we do that on different layers. We have a software layer regarding the hardware control, really, of the modules, which is our IP. And then we have a software layer for the energy management, which controls the overall system. We have a software layer for the security system of the complete product. And we have one on the server level, where we connect all Pikeas to one server. And this enables us to do predictive maintenance and to build up a virtual power plant. Adding these storage capacities, which are incredibly larger than with batteries in every house, to a virtual power plant, stabilizing the grid with all the needs that is ahead of it, and it enables to get the renewable energy baseload capable. And this is actually what we need to achieve to do the energy shift. Pikea is one part of the solution. There is in the world today no product like Pikea. You can achieve this only at HPS, and we're very proud of it. And of course, as having a lead of 3 years in the market, we secure this lead. And the 13 patents already out today are just one part of our strategy here. We are within a growth. We are within a growth scenario. We entered the market in Germany 2019 and started to commercially sell our products. Within the next 12 months, we will expand our markets to the DACH region, meaning Switzerland and Austria, before heading into European countries and afterwards going abroad. We have a very straight strategy how we go into international markets, and we look at several circumstances in the market, which is, of course, the electricity price of the grid, which is the awareness of environmental issues in that country, which is the purchasing power and maybe existing subsidies in the countries. And then we analyze the payback time, and then step by step, we reduce the prices of our product, opening up more and more countries with lower electricity prices for our approach. You see, of course, in the revenue line, a strong growth. This growth is not only ahead of us, it's already happening today. And I want to give you an overview where we are. Until 2018, our revenues were zero. We were developing and investing in the technology and our advantage in the market. The mid of 2019, we first approached the market and did our first revenues, which was about 400,000 euros. And we did prove the whole business model that our product is completely compliant with the market and can be sold to every house without any need of authority check. So we entered the market, the first systems were sold, the first 400,000 euros of revenue were there, and then the difficult year of Corona came right after 2020, and we ramped up from 400,000 to 1.9 million. And at the same time, at the end of the year, we already had an order book of 2.5 million, meaning more than the complete revenue of the year. Now, 6 months later, we're already at 4.6 million. So we're completely on track with the growth that you see ahead of us. But of course, as wonderful it is that we're on a good path, we have to see the challenges ahead of us. And you see again the strong growth. Until today, we're mainly selling B2C, but this is not the way how we can scale up the company. And again, I already said it, this is our goal. So already today, we are preparing the B2B channels which are scalable. And we have started to build up the partnerships with house suppliers, with real estate developers, with installation companies, with power utilities. And we're talking about the really strong and big ones in the market. And these sales channels will enable our growth going into the market. To realize this growth, we need money. It's a hardware business. We're a ramp-up company. We're within this vision and mission. We're executing it. We need money. That's what we're doing and financing round right now. The volume is 25 million. And I would love, if your interest grows in our company, maybe the next step of our mission, of our path of growth starts today. We would love if your interest grows and you would search and talk to each other after the presentation. When we look into the future, not only there is the growth into the market with our existing product, we have a path for single and two-family homes, which is delivering not only the electricity, then also the heat and the mobility, every form of energy you need for your everyday life, out of one hand, completely carbon-free and independent. And additionally, our R&D department will work on products for larger scaled applications, like business applications, multifamily homes, and already this year we're doing the first projects on that side. We have an impact on our environment, and this slide is always inspiring me, and I think it's inspiring all the people that work at HBS. When we bring one PKR to one single house in Germany right now, it saves the amount of 3 tons of carbon per year and house. And this equals the amount of carbon that 130 grown-up 35-meter-high trees bind in 1 year. 130 trees, 1 year per single house. A single house is not our goal. We achieved that already. We want to roll out millions. We want to unleash the power of the people living in houses all over the world to help to stop this climate change. Our system is in the market. It's there. And we have proud customers which actually have become the best ambassadors for a complete carbon-free energy supply. I cannot say it in other words. It's real. It's there. We just need now to grow it. And maybe you see some of the customers behind us on the slide behind me. And on the right side, you already see a system implemented, and you can witness on such a small footprint is just needed to implement a PKR into the house. Some further questions is out of the field. These houses were new builds, so there was a little bit more space, and you see different customers with different systems and PKRs installed. This is the seasonal energy storage, which is outside the house. In the background, you see the garage. The space needed are 3 square meters. And then we clad the solution. And if the storage is cladded, it's completely integrated into the house on an architectural base. So it really looks nice and is part of the building. And these 3 square meters enable the carbon-free energy supply and energy transition to 100% today, for every customer in the house available. There is another huge milestone which we achieved December last year, and I want to share it with you because I think it makes a big difference. If you look at, I would say, a hardware ramp-up company doing hardware, one of the major risks that a company like us is facing is scaling up the production at highest quality costs a lot of time and money. And I think this is a game changer because we transferred the production of our product to the company Zollner. Zollner has 11,800 employees, makes 1.8 billion of revenue, and has customers like Deutsche Bank, Boeing, Lufthansa, etc. So is mass manufacturing at highest quality. And the picture that you see behind me shows the fabrication capacities for PKR where it's built up today. Zollner has one additional information, no product and no pattern. They're just an fabrication line for us. And what is not seen on the picture, the federal minister, economic minister of Bavaria is on the picture as well, being present at the opening of this facility. And we're very proud of it. And I think it already shows how much we can scale up because the fabrication capacity is already secured to over 6,000 units per year. Again, we're in a financing round. We have a product which makes a difference, which enables everyone to do the energy transition today immediately. We need finance power and partners to grow this company further up. That's why I'm here today. And again, if your interest would grow in our company, I would love to go into talks and to answer all questions. And I want to thank you for your attention right now here. Looking forward for the time we may spend together afterwards. All the best.
Thank you very much, Zeyad. We have unfortunately run out of time, so we have to move on. But thank you very much.
Okay.
As a final special greeting tonight, we have a video from MIT. So please cue video.
MIT Solve, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Casey. Hi all, thanks so much for having us today. I'm Casey Stricht. I'm principal of Solve Innovation Future, the philanthropic investment vehicle associated with MIT Solve. So during this presentation, we're going to tell you a little bit more about what is Solve, how is it connected to MIT, what we're doing, and a little bit more about the Solve Innovation Future. So Solve was started from the president, as an idea from the president's office at MIT with the goal of how can MIT support global innovators everywhere, not just the MIT ecosystem, but giving people the platform to scale their social and environmental solutions. So what that looks like is that we are an initiative at MIT, we are a marketplace, we are a platform, and we're a community. A lot of buzzwords, but it's all about connecting people, leaders, passionate people, experts, social entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders with great ideas for solving world big, hairy problems that we identify each year and getting them the resources that they need to be successful. So what that looks like is an annual cycle where we launch roughly 4 to 5 challenges each year. So for 2021, on March 1st, we launched the following challenges: health security and pandemics, digital inclusion, resilient ecosystems, equitable classrooms, and anti-racist tech in the US. They were open on our Open Innovation platform until June 16th, where again, anyone, anywhere could apply. And we reached out to everyone, everywhere through our challenge promotion efforts. And ultimately resulted in a little over 1,800 applications with over $2 million in funding available for those that will be selected. We are still reviewing those applicants now. But we're here, most of us are here because we're interested in sustainability and climate change and the environment. So looking backwards a little bit, since Solve started, these are the 5 challenges that we have done to date up until resilient ecosystems in 2021, starting with carbon contributions, thinking about sustainable urban communities at the intersection of food and water in cities, looking at coastal communities and how coastal communities are mitigating and adapting to climate change, circular economy in 2019, and most recently, sustainable food systems. So each year, for each of these years, we've selected between 7 to 9 teams that we call our solver teams. They are a mix of for-profit and nonprofit, and they all have different needs. They're around the world and at different stages, but they come together as a peer group around these different challenge topics. And so what that translates to when I say solver teams is our solver portfolio. So since starting, we've drawn from a pool of over 6,500 solutions that have gone onto our platform and applied from 157 countries. And then we've selected 165 teams across these 21 challenges. They're headquartered in 43 countries and working in a whole lot more than that. And as you can see, it's almost a half and half between for-profit, nonprofit, hybrid. And what I'm particularly proud of is that over 50% of them are led by women. And then the real meat of what we're doing is about partnerships. Partnerships are our metric for success. So when solver teams come to us, they tell us what their needs are. We do a full assessment of their work, their impact, the number of lives that their solutions and their work have affected. And we're making introductions, we're making connections to investors and legal help and marketing help, and valuing that now to date at over $40 million across over 300 partnerships, with many more connections and indirect connections coming from that. So to be even more specific, I wanted to highlight a few of these solver teams that I mentioned. So from our coastal communities solution, we selected Evelyn Tickle with Grow Oyster Reefs. She was a one-woman show that was still working her second job while she was working on this solution to create concrete-based oyster reefs, mostly on the East Coast in the US. She's now in multiple locations. She's partnered with leading professors and research staff at MIT, and is now continuing to succeed, continuing to put her oyster reefs in different bodies of water around the East Coast, and hopefully even beyond that soon. Julia Kumari Dropkin is another example that I love. She was skeptical to apply to any program at all, and started out with us. She was selected for the potential to implement AI in her citizen science-based platform, and has now was selected for that potential for AI, learned how to do AI, learned how to think about it, implemented it in her solution, and then has continued to get additional funding. AI is fully part of her platform, and she's now working globally on her platform and measuring heat events, flooding. She's based in New Orleans, is very familiar with that. She's in Boston talking about urban heat problems, and really leveraging every possible opportunity that comes her way through Solve. And then I also want to mention Cecilia Blasco with Smartfish Mexico. They're a hybrid model. She leads the nonprofit arm, where they're working with smallholder fishers in Mexico, but then they have a for-profit arm where they have stores throughout Mexico that are selling that produce. They're working, again, to pay smallholder fishers a livable wage, and continuing to grow, and similarly taking every opportunity at Solve. And then I'm going to actually hand it over to Casey now with Stephanie, who is one of our first investees from our Circular Economy Challenge.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. And as I say, we're really excited to be here with you today because Solve's mission is to find the innovators who will drive transformational change to the world's most pressing problems. And Sharon's job is to find those innovators. My job is then to invest in those innovators and help to grow the commercial and investable pipeline for the rest of the community so that we have a robust group of entrepreneurs that we can fund and support and help scale. So Stephanie's a perfect example of this, and I'll tell you a little bit about Stephanie and then a little bit about the vehicle we use, Solve Innovation Future, to support these teams. Stephanie is a first-time female founder who grew up in the textile industry and realized that there is incredible opportunity for optimization within the supply chain of textiles. And that if we are able to use blockchain and, again, AI to tag fabric through the supply chain, we can do a better job of eliminating the waste that is rampant in that supply chain, both driving impact on the bottom line for the CFO's office, but of course having substantive sustainability impacts. And at this point, Stephanie and the Queen of Bra team have saved over 1 billion gallons or have created 1 billion gallons of clean water, not to mention the impacts on reduced chemicals that are being dumped into other water systems and watersheds, et cetera. So I think it's really, she's a perfect example of a very commercializable supply chain opportunity or optimization platform that's also hyper-focused on leaving the world a better place, and Stephanie would say with you, for her children. So how do we do this? We do this through a vehicle called Solve Innovation Future. And Solve Innovation Future is based and was created specifically to advance the work of our solver teams, who often are facing a very traditional valley of death, but with the added challenge of transitioning from friends and family and seed rounds to Series A with an impact focus, and that's really important to them. So we structured Solve Innovation Future to take grant funding or philanthropic funding, and then to make direct investments in these teams. Ultimately, those investments and the proceeds from those investments are recycled back into the fund. So moving from the right side of the slide, we've structured an evergreen and recyclable vehicle that pays it forward. And a single grant that comes to us could be recycled more than 3 times over the life cycle of the fund of 7 to 10 years of investment. We have a diversified portfolio. We're here talking about our sustainability teams today, but my role at Solve is actually to invest across all 4 sectors in which we work: sustainability, economic prosperity, health, and learning. We currently have investments across each of those sectors, and we are currently active on 5 continents. Similarly, over 50% of our investments are female-led, and actually 75 are majority-led, 75%. So we're really proud of those numbers, and that's very important to us. And finally, I think what we're starting to see is, while we've only been actively investing for a year, our investments have catalyzed over 3 times our capital dispersed towards our investees. So our participation is really important in driving the total capital raised for our teams, particularly in those late seed and early Series A or first institutional rounds. So how does it work? Let me walk you through the specific structure. First, we take grant capital to Solve Innovation Future. Then we make investments in solver teams. Proceeds or returns from those investments come back into the fund, and the donor receives a tax deduction along the way. We actually work, while we've been primarily focused on the US and the US donor base, we certainly have opportunities beyond, and we're actually experimenting with our first product that would allow us to return proceeds to some investors moving forward. I think fundamentally, the other piece that I will add is that in addition to supporting the solver teams, we're hoping and we intend to disrupt the traditional philanthropic market, in that if you make the grant, you know you're losing 100%. If you invest it with us, we have the opportunity to reinvest that several times over the life of the fund. And we pick our teams from the Solver program. Sharon described the number of applications that we got in the last year. It's a 5-stage process for a Solver team to become a Solver team, from the moment they submit their solution all the way through their selected Solve Challenge winner. And then I come in a phase 2 selection with a diligence process that looks very familiar to some of the diligence process that I'm sure all of you run. Specifically, I'll call out the fact that within 5 years, Solve has already started to see persistence rates that are best in class. So not only are we hyper selective, we're at less than 0.2% of applicants become SIF investees. But we're also seeing that even some teams that we missed out on because we didn't actually have our fund dispersing capital are already finding huge success. Nightingale listed on the Finnish NASDAQ last year, and Ruan Guru, an Indonesian-based team, has raised a Series C2 round that includes Tiger Global and General Atlantic as investors. And I'll just end on sharing a little bit about our portfolio. And I think Sharon really nicely described this diversity within our sustainability team. And I think what I'll point out is that we believe that a growing number of our teams are investable, and that's really important. As we begin to see teams move from their seed rounds through their Series A and B, we were lucky enough to have some teams present here at CleanEquity Monaco last year. And we're really looking forward to continuing to make connections with this community to support the growth of our solver teams moving forward. And with that, we would love to continue the conversation. As I say, my name is Casey Vanderstricht. I'm principal of Solve Innovation Future. I can be reached at casey.vanderstricht@solve.mit.edu. Similarly, Sharon.
Easily reachable on email or book a meeting with either of us through this event. We look forward to connecting and collaborating with you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. That is the closing of today. Those of you who are joining us for the dinner tonight, the cocktail reception starts at 7:30. Tomorrow morning, we have a coffee at 9:30 and a brand new day filled with companies starting at 10 o'clock. So I look forward to seeing you there.